Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Coach Matt, EliteThrowsCoaching.com, Primal Athlete Training Center here in Cranston, Rhode Island. Part one, we were showing you guys how to actually prepare your throwing area. So we showed you how we measured out. The square, actually, in the last video, we said was 10 foot by 10 foot. I messed up. It's actually 10 foot by 12 foot. So it's a 10 foot by 12 foot square. We showed you the paint to use, the additives to put in the paint, how to tape it all off, all that good stuff. So what we're going to do today is myself and helper of mine here, Joe, who's a senior cross-country wrestling and track athlete. Joe is here shadowing, but he's also going to help me out to make this circle. So if some of you coaches out there that think this has to be done by professional people and hire a company, all this other stuff, you can see we have a cross-country runner who does track. He is not a thrower, but we're going to have him set this up with me. So you'll see Joe when we do the time lapse. But essentially, here's what we're going to do. We're going to show you exactly what is needed to create one of these circles. All the tools, most of the stuff you probably already have either in your desk at school or at home. Real simple to do, just takes a little bit of measuring, kind of measuring twice, cutting once, making sure that you guys get everything exactly where it needs to be. All right, so we're going to turn the camera around real quick. We're going to show you guys the supplies that you need to do this, and then we're going to show you how we measured it out, and also show you guys as we actually mark out the chalk circle before we get ready to paint. Okay, so real quick, let me take you through some of the supplies that you're going to need today. First thing, obviously, is a toe board. That's something that's definitely necessary for shot put. But real quick, we're going to go through real simple stuff. We just have regular old household twine, some painter's tape. I'm actually going to use the green painter's tape to measure out the throwing sector. We're going to show you how to do that today as well. And the blue painter's tape we're going to use to sort of section off some things so that paint doesn't get out of control. We're going to use a sledgehammer. You'll see how we do that in a second. Paintbrush, mixing stick. The paint we're using for circles, I like to use a high gloss paint. Again, this is a very small, it's a half pint, so it's like one of those sample containers. Good thing about white, you don't have to pay to have it turn a different color. You can just use the white. And what you see right here is sort of a homemade compass. So at one end of the compass, we have a piece of chalk tied with a twine, and at the other end of the compass, we have just a regular old bolt that we had lying around, and we tied it to the other side. So that pretty much is all you guys need. Now we're just going to show you how we measured out to find the center of the circle, and we're going to do everything up real quick, show you guys how to take care of this at home. All right, so we've got here Joe. Again, Joe is a senior from East Greenwich High School. He's doing some shadowing here as part of his senior project that he needs to do to graduate. So he's here helping out in the gym, and one of the things we have him doing every week, we try to give him something different to do. So Joe is actually who helped me measure out the circle. So the first thing that we needed to do was find where the center of our circle was going to be. So we are going to do a discus circle on the outside, a shot put circle on the inside, and both circles are going to share the same center. That way both circles share the same sector lines. So it makes it real easy when we're throwing into the net. We can just unbolt the toe board when we need to do discus drills, bolt the toe board back in when we are doing our shot put drills, and that way we don't have to mess with multiple circles or being too far away from the net or too close to the net. Everything is right there. So the first thing we had to establish is where we actually are going to put the center of the circle. So in order to do that, first things first, we had to find the midpoint of our 10-foot width. Because again, remember from the last video, the middle of this painted square is going to match up to the middle of the net that we're throwing into. So if you look right down here, you can see what we did. So basically, well, I'll just kind of reenact it for you. I had Coach Joe hold one side of the measuring tape. I held the other side of the measuring tape right here at 10 feet. There we go. And all we did was we got a 10-foot square, and then we measured the 5-foot mark, which is right here at 60 inches. So we did that in the front, and then we just picked it up. And then we did the same thing in the back, measured 10 feet. So at the 5-foot mark, we're at 60 inches. We made a mark right there. And then from there, what we did was we stretched out, we'll move the toe board real quick. We stretched out, if you want to stand right down there, Joe. Yep. We'll go mark it out at 12 feet. And essentially we know at this point that everything is pretty square. So we're right here at 12 feet. We know everything is pretty much square, right on the money. So we know approximately that's where our discus center line is going to be. So essentially we just kind of quartered off this square. So now we have sort of a plus sign, imaginary plus sign going through the middle. Now the thing about it is the middle of that plus sign is not the middle of our discus circle. And here's why. The way we have it set up now, the middle of the square is going to be right about here. That's going to be too close to our net because of the space that we're working in. So we wanted to move the circle as far back as possible. So we know a discus circle is 8 feet 2.5 inches. Half, or the radius of that, is 4 feet 1.25 inches. So that's going to be the radius of the discus circle. So what we did was we measured back about 4.5 feet from the end of our square. You can see we've already started drawing the chalk line for the top of the discus circle, but we started measuring 4 foot 6 inches back. So you see right over here, 4 foot 6 inches. Oop, there we go. Joe holds it on one side. We've already made the mark, but we're at 4 foot 6 inches on one side, and we measured the same on the other side, 4 foot 6 inches. And from there, again, we just measured exactly across 10 feet. So from mark to mark, we measured across 10 feet. And as you'll see, right here at 5 feet is this little black dot, which is the center of the circle. So we know that when we measure the diameter, when we do the arc of the discus circle, it's not going to go off the painted area, but we're going to still have a couple of inches left over where we can paint a thicker line so that you've got a regular painted line like you would have on a discus circle or a shot circle that's outdoors. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to put this in the time lapse. We're going to show you how we actually measured out the 4 foot 1.25 inch, made that compass out of twine, some chalk, and a bolt, and how we go about drawing the circle. Okay, so let me explain a little bit what this is. This is just basically a homemade compass. What we've done is we've taken a piece of twine that's about 5 feet long, we've got it tied to one end of the bolt, and then we've got it tied to one end of where the chalk is. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the sledgehammer and we're going to put the bolt just a little bit, we're going to tap it right into the ground. It's not even far enough where it's going to stick, but what it's going to do is have Coach Joe is going to put his finger right on top of it, almost like a holder in football holding it for a field goal. And then I'm just going to walk around and make the arc. So the only thing we have to do really is just measure the string to make sure that it is 4 foot 1.25 inch, which is the radius of the discus circle. So if you need to shorten up the string, all you do is just twist the string around the chalk, and that's how you make it exactly 4 foot 1.25 inches long. So we're going to show you guys how we do all that right now and break it up for you. All right, so what you just saw, myself and Coach Joe, we made the string 4 foot 1.25 inches. We went from the radius, around the radius of the circle. So Joe just held the bolt right at that center point. I walked around with the string. It worked out afterwards. We went and measured with the measuring tape. The diameter of the circle, 8 feet 2.5 inches, exactly where it needs to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to lengthen the string by a couple of inches, and we're going to make the outer part of the circle so that we have a nice 2-inch thick painted circle that goes around, or at least the stencil of where the paint is going to go. We're going to paint it a little bit later, show you the finished product tomorrow. And then we're going to do the same thing with the shot put circle that's going to go on the inside of the discus circle. The only difference, it's the same exact procedure, the only difference is going to be that instead of it being a 4 foot 1.25 length string to make the 8 foot 2.5 inch circle, it's going to be a 3.5 foot string, which is going to make the 7 foot circle. We're going to use the same midpoint, same exact procedure, but we're just going to draw again, a 7-foot diameter circle, which means you need a 3.5-foot radius or a 3.5-foot piece of string. The other thing too, make sure use a new piece of chalk. I had no idea that the chalk was going to go from being about, an inch long to almost nothing by the time that we were done. So we're going to redo it. Again, show you a time lapse of doing the shot circle. And then again, you guys can fill in the blanks. You guys are all smart. We're going to do the outer part of that circle. We're going to position the toe board, bolt it all down, paint everything together, make it look all really nice and neat. And then we'll put a picture of it at the end of this video.